Welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
I'm John.
And I'm Colin.
So we are going to talk today about Zack Snyder's Justice League. We are going to probably make a couple videos about this
hmm
because it's a 4-hour movie. But right now we're going to talk about the characters of the movie. We'll first give our spoiler-free impressions of the movie in case you haven't seen the 4-hour movie, which is possible because it's a 4-hour movie. We'll give our spoiler-free impressions and our recommendation, and then we'll start spoiling the movie by going into the characters. We'll make additional videos probably to talk about the different parts of the movie, to delve
hmm
into the more specifics. So just to start, Colin, do you want to give your impressions of the movie in general?
Sure, definitely. It was long. Basically, the 4 hours was 4 hours, including the credits at the end. Definitely filled in a lot of gaps in terms of the story. It basically, what Zack Snyder was saying in interviews and things like that online. Basically, he delivered on all of those promises that he was talking about. For example, Cyborg having a bigger story. There's going to be definitely some new footage, and then there's also some stuff that you didn't see that you didn't see in the original cut in 2017, and also stuff that you saw from the trailers that were put back into this movie. So definitely, I would say you know block off some time to do it if you can sit for 4 hours, but I definitely kind of took breaks in between after each part. So I think that having the parts split up like that was really great so that people can kind of take a pause and take a break and absorb the information and things like that. So I think that what Zack Snyder did there was actually very beneficial for the viewing audience and making sure that people kind of took their time with watching the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie I thought met every expectation I had. I'm a big DC guy, so very disappointed with the first version of it when Joss Whedon came out with that version, and highly anticipating this movie to be coming out, even though 4 hours long. Yes, it is very long, but it also showed that you know what they should have gone the Marvel way. Each one of these characters definitely needed their own solo movie, and it looked like Zack Snyder was trying to establish a lot of the backstory, necessary backstory that were completely cut out of Joss Whedon's version. And so that was a very welcome sight and enjoyable as well to see all these characters finally get their due. I mean, after all, he was introducing for this movie three new characters as part of the Justice League in this movie, and as a result, it got a little over bloated at times. But also, as the nerd and geek in me watching the our super friends, the Justice League, come together, I was loving it. So I was definitely geeking out, and we'll definitely delve more into the characters.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
am admittedly not necessarily a fan of some of the other Zack Snyder's previous stuff, and now that I'm hearing more about the background stuff, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit. It might be because his stuff keeps getting cut down, but
Mhm.
I have to admit that I definitely enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it more than I did the original cut for a lot of reasons. Uh, I was mostly just like meh on the original one. It was fine. I
Mhm.
liked it better than the previous stuff because it was just more colorful. All the colors weren't desaturated out, but it was definitely a weird mess of a movie. And if you see this movie, you understand why it was a weird mess of a movie because a lot of things were cut out that would have made it make more sense, and a lot of things were cut out that inexplicably that would have made it make more sense. Even the runtime of the original
Mhm.
movie only would have been a little bit longer, or they could have made it exactly 2 hours and took out some ridiculous stuff that they shouldn't have put into the previous movie. I don't understand why they cut out certain things that was already shot to for the theatrical release. So this movie is definitely better. It's definitely long, but I think it's worth your time if even if you don't watch it in one sitting. So that's my
Mm-hmm.
impression of the movie. I think the night that I was watching it, I got a little tired. I don't know if I fell asleep a couple times. I had to rewatch it a couple times, and I'm not because maybe it might have been like a long day. But once I started up again after I woke up, I watched it for like 3 hours all the way through. So I don't know if I was in a different mood. Maybe I would have been able to watch the 4 hours all the way through. So even if you don't watch it in one sitting, I think it's worth your time. It's especially if you are a comic book nerd, even if you're just an action movie person, and there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely, and even if you're just like someone who likes good storytelling, because there's definitely some good storytelling here as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
good to see that is separate from the spectacle, because he definitely has a lot of spectacle in this movie. So that's
Right.
my impression of the movie. Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I guess we could start going into the spoiler territory. And before that, we'll talk a little bit about why we even have a Zack Snyder, and maybe we should have talked about that at the beginning. But spoilers ahead. First and last warning: spoilers ahead. So, John, do you want to get into why we even have another Justice League movie before we get into the characters?
Sure. Money, money, money. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we know it all comes down to money, right? It always comes down to money. In WB's rush to compete with the Avengers, they had already hired Zack Snyder to make Man of Steel, and they clearly don't have a Kevin Feige, the super producer that Marvel Studios has, who is the shepherd of all things Marvel and keeping everything great and high quality. They don't have anybody like that. They tried with different people and it just didn't work. And it again, when they tried Batman versus Superman, and they again studio interference to cut it down a little bit, the story suffered greatly, and they ended up doing the ultimate cut, which definitely filled back in a lot of the backstory that was missing, that made it a much more coherent movie. Same thing happened here. Once Batman versus Superman came out, the audience reaction, along with critical, it just absolutely bombed in the background, with the critics just tearing it apart. It suffered. It did not do well at the box office, and the WB executives panicked. Right? They went to Zach and said, make this funnier, or do this, do that," and that ended up putting a lot of pressure on Zach. He was fighting with him quite a bit. And then the most tragic thing happened. His daughter Autumn, who was I believe early 20s, 20 or 21 at the time, died, committed suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and that just took all the fight out of him. And gave up. And when that started happening, Joss Whedon, who was already hired to add more funny stuff to the movie that he was working on, they decided, hey, finish this movie. And when Josh took over, he put his own spin on it. Apparently, filmed, reshot 75% of what was already there for Justice League at the time, and added in a lot of his stuff. It was just such a rush job. You can tell by the quality of the CGI that was in that movie compared to what we now have here. Granted, there were a lot of times Zach, knowing that this movie was going to be pretty big as well, he was talking about parts one and two for this. Just
Mm-hmm.
from what he already shot, he wanted to release it one year in 2017 and the very next year in 2018. And of course, studio was pushing back, especially after the results of Batman versus Superman. But again, in this version, he spends a lot more time filling in a lot of the backstory that weren't present in Joss Whedon's version.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
think that.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think that for Black Batman and Superman, I think that they should have just went with the idea of releasing the Ultimate Edition out there. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that critics would probably say, um, you're releasing such that long of a movie. But I think at that time, I think that they kind of miscalculated in figuring out, the nerd world and the geekdom world was kind of becoming mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they made that miscalculation to kind of be too much like Marvel, and try to, be like the Avengers and things like that. But I think that, just in my opinion, that they should have just went with the longer version of Batman versus Superman. With Justice League, it's definitely a different story because of the fact of Zack Snyder's personal tragedy that kind of derailed a lot of what was here. And I think that, they were under no much pressure to try to put something out. Again, like you said, John, because of money reasons, they had to put it out there, even though the product wasn't good. And so they made that decision. Look, let's give Zack Snyder another chance. Give him $30 million to kind of rework it, because of that personal tragedy, and put it on HBO Max so we can actually make money off of it as well. But I also do not want to discount the fact that fans are very well informed and well tuned, and that's why the hashtag was out immediately after Justice League was out. The release of Snyder Cut hashtag was everywhere. So again, I think that there was a lot of different factors in contributing to why this 4-hour film came out the way that it came out. So HBO Max, Zack Snyder's personal tragedy, money, studio executives getting in the way, competing with Marvel. So there's a lot of storylines that are there that are just really ripe for analysis.
Yeah,
including some of the toxic fans as well.
So, that's true too.
Yeah, while there was a very nice groundswell of support for release the Snyder Cut hashtag, we have to acknowledge that there were some very toxic fans among them as well, just attacking others for even wanting this. I guess a lot of movements have those types of people, but this one, it has to be noted that there were some pretty toxic people. Even Zack Snyder, Nathan, I think you sent me that link where he got on with a YouTube channel where a bunch of folks on there who lean very heavily to the right. He even acknowledged on there, he wanted to say, look, even though I'm on here, we have another affiliation here, he had to put that message out, and which begs the question why he was even on there in the first place. But,
so to make clear, he was on a stream that was a benefit for some charity or something like that, some charity event associated with the broadcast. And in that event, they were bringing together lots of different YouTubers from different channels, and one of the channels was this toxic channel. Okay. And he, even before the event, said that he didn't want to be associated with them, but they still had their logo on the event's thing, so he wanted to be very clear that, I don't like them, and I don't like them because of the content that they put out. So I think that was the clarification that he wanted to make, but he didn't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and not do the charity event. I think that's why he made that clarification.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Yep.
I did not know the specifics of his family tragedy. I thought his child was younger, so if I had known, I would have actually mocked up something to say, because talking about suicide can be a trigger warning. So if you have an issue, there's definitely help out there. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. So yeah, I didn't know about that. That's makes it even more tragic. Every time I've heard about it, I've heard that his daughter died, but I didn't know the consequences or the circumstances rather. Yeah, what you said, Colin, I saw the Ultimate Edition of Batman versus Superman just a couple of days ago, or just yesterday rather, and it's a better movie. They should have just. Oh yeah, they learned the wrong things from that movie. I think I was watching another YouTuber talk about this earlier today, and I think she's correct in her analysis here. I think that they thought that the movie was too long. That's why it didn't do well. They cut things out of it. That's why it didn't do well. So they made they made Justice League even shorter, which means they cut even more out of it. Which means yeah, they definitely learned the wrong lessons from the Batman versus Superman's failure. They shouldn't have cut down this movie. If that's how much time he needed to tell this story, tell his story. They were trying to make him basically catch up with the Marvel universe in one movie anyway. And
Right.
if you're gonna try to do that in one or two movies, then you have to give time to the storytelling. You can't do it in two and a
Right.
half. You can't do it in 2.5 hours. It doesn't make sense. It's difficult to make. Because,
Right.
I mean, if it was a team of 3, maybe, but a team of 6, you have to
Yeah.
give it the breath that you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they.
And yeah.
To be fair to Joss Whedon, I can't believe I'm saying this, especially
Yeah, I mean,
in light of all the stuff he's got going on.
His recent issues notwithstanding, he was put in a difficult position.
A very difficult position, and clearly he, cut a lot of extraneous parts out as much as he could to stick to the plot, which the general overall plot, by the way, is pretty much similar to what we got with Zack Snyder's version, but all the things that make you care about the characters, all the things that make you follow the story, all the things that make you hate the villain, those types of things, all that was missing, right, from the first versions, and now we finally get it here in this long version.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that like I said, that if they really want to distinguish themselves from Marvel and not do the Marvel formula, I think that putting it out there to say, oh my gosh, this is going to be a 3.5-hour movie, doing something that bold to distinguish yourself would be a good play, and I think that would actually say, hey, that the fans would be getting excited and they'll have more engagement because of it. But because they try to thread the needle and stuff, I think it kind of backfired on them because of that. So I think that they should have been bold in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I want to also point out is you're right about that, Colin. Being bold and showing a longer movie. I can't tell you how many people online that I've seen and read saying the same thing, which was, hey, even though this movie's 4 hours long, this is my third time watching it today. I mean, granted, it's on HBO Max and all that, but how much repeat business would it have really drummed up if it was released back then? Even though it was long.
Right.
Yeah, they might have had one. They might have been able to give Disney a run for their money for the top grossing movies of all time. But now Disney owns both of them, and they can keep playing with the numbers to keep going back and forth.
Right.
But yeah, I think if they had cut the original BVS properly and let him do the regular cut, a bunch of people would have been excited about the next movie. That's not to say there aren't issues with BVS, because I still don't. He made the decisions that he made, but Doomsday in the same movie is weird to me still.
Yes, that is.
But it makes more sense at the ultimate edition. It didn't make sense to me. I watched it twice. I paid $20 twice to watch it. It didn't make sense to me. It just the pacing and stuff didn't make sense to me. So the ultimate edition I watched the other day it was clearer what was happening, and Lex Luthor's machinations and things like that was clearer. What he was, I mean, it wasn't like impossible to understand that Lex Luthor was pulling the strings, but they were just things that were cut out that made it make more sense. After they did that movie, I mean, it made a bunch of money, but it probably would have made more money, and people would have been even more excited about the Justice League. And I don't know if this 4-hour thing would have been a good thing to do, because there's certain things that they probably should have cut out. He probably should have cut out of this one, but fine, he was being self-indulgent. But even at 3.5 hours, if you cut out some of the things that he out of this cut, it would have been a great movie. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to allude to another epic, franchise, Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings is 3 hours long. Every one of the theatrical versions is 3 hours long. The extended version is almost 4.5 hours long. But the extended version was very popular with a lot of fans, including me, because I want to know all of the stories of all of the Fellowship members and the backstories and all of that. Because if you're invested in those characters because of great storytelling, then you would pay the money to see it, and you would spend the time to do it. So I just think that Warner Brothers, in many aspects, they just kind of dropped the ball on that and just kind of like said, okay, we're just going to basically, we think the audience have very short attention span, so we're not going to, we're just going to cut it down, for the sake of just cutting it down. So I just think that they, again, like I said, miscalculated the fact that, your audience wants this stuff, and if you tell a good story, They don't mind sitting there for 4 hours and just watching it endlessly because they care about the characters.
Yeah, I mean, last thing on this, because we actually should start talking about the movie, because we haven't been. Last thing on this I think it just goes to show that the people who run these studios should have an artistic background. Like, they should understand art as opposed to just understanding business. You really have to be both. You can't be a person who's like a bean counter and make these decisions, because you'll come up with the wrong reasons for why things fail, or the wrong reasons for why things will succeed. And even artists can't get that right all the time. But if you don't make anything, if you're not an artist, if you've never written a script, if you've never produced a movie or something, they really shouldn't be elevating these people to executive decisions where they're making decisions about movies. Yep. So, and
this is why, again, I implore WB and DC, please go kidnap Kevin Feige and force him to be the shepherd of all things DC, because that man's got it.
Well, they had James Gunn for a little bit, so but Marvel kind of asked him to come back.
We talked about James Gunn, though. I don't know if James Gunn would be James Gunn without Feige editing. We'll see in the Justice League movie. Justice League movie.
Good point.
All right, so let's get into the first thing I want to talk about. So this is going to just be like a character breakdown and things that we liked about the movie. So Ray Fisher, Cyborg, was the person most robbed in the theatrical cut. He's the core of this movie. I was joking with you guys before we went live that this movie could have been called Zack Snyder's Justice League Rise of Cyborg, because it's basically Cyborg's movie. He's the core of the movie. I mean, everyone else, even though he doesn't get introduced until later on in the movie, maybe looking at the sections here, maybe an hour into the movie is when he gets introduced. Yeah, an hour and 9 minutes into the movie, he gets introduced. So even though he gets introduced later, a little later into the movie, it's definitely about him, and they cut all of that out. I understand why Ray Fisher. I understand why Ray Fisher is so upset. Why he doesn't like Josh Reed and Jeff Loeb, because I mean these were their decisions, I think. And it makes that movie a worse movie. It makes that movie make less sense. And you wouldn't even have to put all of the scenes that Snyder put in this movie with Ray Fisher to make his character make more sense. You just have to put some of the scenes back, like the scene with him understanding his power, the tape recorder thing. Because in that scene, you understand his power. You understand why he's pretty much as powerful as Superman. Superman can go from one place to another, but he could launch all the missiles on the planet. He could destroy the planet if he wanted to too, and a lot quicker than Superman. So you understand why he's a Justice League level person, right? But you also see his heart in that scene. You see him.
Oh yes.
So that scene, I don't understand why that was removed from the original movie. So.
Yeah, they removed every scene with the exception, this is according to Ray Fisher, every scene with the exception of the rooftop scene with Commissioner Gordon. He said everything was completely reshot by Whedon. And for those of you who are not aware of some of the controversies, Ray Fisher has been calling out a lot of abuse that he suffered during the making of this movie, particularly under Joss Whedon. Everything we hear about the behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to Zack Snyder, apparently he's he's got the backing of all his actors. Everyone loves working with him. Apparently he has a very positive atmosphere when he's shooting on set. But when Joss Whedon came along, it just sounds like everything went very toxic, very fast, including some accusations of perhaps maybe even some racism behind some of those motivations, perhaps. Definitely, it sounds like to me some of the things that are being claimed right now is that they didn't want to see an angry black man, right, be at the heart of this movie, and that's why Josh completely rewrote everything. The thing is, he was angry, but it explained why he was angry.
I feel like in the original cut, he seems more angry because they don't show any of his humanity. You don't like him at all. He's just there, and he has a reason to be upset. And they show you why he's upset. And they also show you him lighter in that he's not upset when he actually realizes his power. Because before the accident, they had they had shots with his mother, and they showed you his character because he was hacking before the accident to help someone out, right? They showed you his character even before he got into the accident. Oh, I don't understand.
Yeah, and they also showed him being a hero, coming into the rescue. I mean, my gosh, if I had that power, holy crap, every bank would be done, right? Because it showed him, so I guess somewhat stalking, but following this poor lady trying to make ends meet, and he just was able to somehow funnel some under the guise of a sweepstakes winner or contest winner when she gets to an ATM that just completely saved all the stuff that she was doing with her poor little girl. And that right there, I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, and it was done in so little time. They showed him looking at her life, looking at the fact that she works so hard. She has this child. She, even with as little as she makes, she's giving it away to poor people on the street. She's about to get thrown out. That was all done, and I don't know. The whole sequence altogether is maybe 10 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. The sequence with her specifically was maybe 3 minutes, but you understand his heart in that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I think that, hey, if you put that in the theatrical release, people will be talking about it.
People would want a Ray Fisher movie, and I think we should still get a Ray Fisher movie.
They were clamoring for a Cyborg movie, which got canned, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? It does reek of Joss Whedon and whoever, is it Walter Hamada or whoever he's accusing. It does look like they were just really trying to kill his career.
And here we're going to talk about you touched on maybe it's racism later, but we can touch on that later on when we get to some of the smaller characters. But pretty much every character of color was cut out of this movie, and it seems suspicious and it seems weird. And if anyone's watched any of our content, we always talk about this stuff. But even people who are reviewing this thing who are white pointed out, because it's obvious and it's weird, that they cut out they cut down his character. They couldn't cut him out completely because he's one of the Justice League people. He's one of the Justice League, right? But every other character of color, which leads me to Joe Morton. His story, Victor Stone's story is poignant is not just because of Victor Stone's parts, but also Joe Morton's parts. His father, the way that the issues that he has with his father, but also the character beats that Joe Morton does when he's trying to connect with his son at the end of the movie, but also when they're breaking into the facility and he's so proud of him to see him surrounded by these people. They did Joe Morton wrong. They did Ray Fisher wrong in this movie because you got to imagine they put a lot of work into this, right? And they just get cut out. So anyway, go
right.
ahead.
But I just think that it's just again bad decision making from the higher ups. It's just like that is just so beautiful. I mean, that's the whole story with his father, and people can relate to that. And people can relate to the story of the woman who's trying to make ends meet, especially in today's economy, in today's world. So people can relate to these things, and I just don't understand as to again what they were afraid of. Maybe you're right, Nathan. Maybe there's some racial undertones because of it, but it's very human and it has a lot of heart. So. This is what storytelling is all about, and just to not acknowledge it or cut it out from the movie, it's just very unfair and very tragic. But I'm grateful that these things got put back into the movie, so we can actually see Cyborg as a fully fleshed character, and I think that does it justice.
Yeah. Joe Morton is one of my favorite character actors. He's been in so many different genre movies and TV shows over his huge career. It's funny, when we were first referring to him, Nathan and I, we were calling him Dyson, right? Miles Dyson from Terminator 2. Because it's that little bit part that he had in that movie. He's still so memorable. We remember his name, right? Yeah.
great in that movie.
And I remember him in so many other things like Eureka. I used to watch that. Remember him from Speed. I mean, so many roles that he's had. He's always been awesome, right? He always bring this A game. And we were robbed of yet another very memorable performance from him. Emotional, and especially when we get to that scene where he's in that glass cube.
Yeah,
I didn't understand the
that,
motivation behind that, but until Batman points out, he knew, right? And he was actually trying to highlight where all the other mother boxes are. Boy, that really hit, right? That really hit home there.
Yeah, because otherwise,
to his Terminator, very similar to his Terminator 2 scene as well. Very similar.
Yeah, without that sacrifice, even with their power, they're powerful. They basically have powers of gods. How are they going to find him? They weren't going to be able to find him. So yeah, I don't know. This makes no sense. They shouldn't have cut his scenes. They shouldn't have cut Ray Fisher's scenes, of course. But anyway, we can talk more about that when we make more videos and break down the sections.
Sure, I do want to point out one more thing. Sorry, Nathan. There was about Cyborg, right? When he had his very touching moment. The Unity tried to get by showing his parents, fake parents, right, in his vision or that he was seeing, and he was, they're trying to play on the fact that, look, you're all alone, you're so broken, and Cyborg, in his moment of triumph, redemption, and realization, I'm not alone. I saw that as two different things, and that I will admit I kind of welled up a little bit there, because not only for his moment, but I heard Zack Snyder speaking on that as well, right? When he says "I'm not alone," it reminded me of his daughter, right? And I thought it was a very powerful moment.
Yeah, that was really good writing. One of the reasons I haven't been a big fan of Zack Snyder stuff is because you don't see the heart in his stuff. I think that the Marvel character is a little bit more developed because you connect with them on a human level. But that was a really good line. He said, "I'm not broken and I'm not alone." So yeah, it was good. It was great writing. Yeah.
So I think we all agree we want to see a Cyborg movie.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Sure.
With Ray Fisher.
Yes. Yeah. With Ray Fisher.
Without Joss Whedon.
So moving on, Jason Momoa, Aquaman. What do you think of the additions to this movie with him?
I think Zack Snyder clearly had a different storyline for Aquaman in mind compared to the movie we got. Don't get me wrong, I love the Aquaman movie, and I like what we got in there. But I also like the fact that he definitely had a different Aquaman in mind. We got to see more Vulko, we got to see more Mera. Mera with for some reason a British accent, and I can't figure out why she has that, because I don't think she had one in Aquaman.
No, she didn't.
And but he got his own movie. He got his own movie, truly introducing him in this movie. So we got to see a little bit of backstory. Vulko with the long hair instead of it all tied up in a neat little bun that we saw in Aquaman, and also some references to something about his dad. It made it sound like he really hadn't been connecting with his dad, which is not what we saw in Aquaman. In the movie Aquaman, right? So I liked that he was a little bit more subdued, less jokey in this one, and a little more brooding, yes, of course. And at the same time, that kind of goes against type with what Jason Momoa is really known for in his real life personality. He's just a jovial guy, right? But he was definitely much closer to Khal Drago a little bit, in that a little more stoic. But at the same time, he also got to highlight a couple parts, especially in his conversation with Flash. He said, "I thought you didn't care." That's what Flash says. I mean, he says, "I never said that." So, subtle moment, but very nice.
Yeah. I think that for me, he definitely played a smaller role in this movie. You definitely see a lot more. I actually don't even remember a lot about Aquaman except for the chemistry that Amber Heard and Jason Momoa had in that movie. That was actually really well done, and also the world building of Atlantis. But I think that I think it worked for him. Having him be at the very beginning of the movie, and then just being like kind of a mystery as well. You don't really know, like what John said about, you don't really know what his intentions are, and I think that and Jason Momoa played a pretty good, portrayal of that kind of. You don't really know where he is. You don't know. I mean, you know that he's loyal. You know that he wants to fight for the cause, but you just don't know because there's a lot of trauma that he has had in his past as well, and also just the resistance to take up the mantle of who he is as an individual. So he's still kind of in this movie going through a lot of these traumas and going through it so that he's able to be a fully fleshed character in Aquaman.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that the Aquaman that we got in the movie is necessarily that far off from this guy. I mean, there's definitely some differences, but yeah, James Wan didn't have to follow up from this movie. He had to follow up from the Justice League movie. So he basically he took away her British accent, Mera's accent. Willem Dafoe is basically playing the same character. So there's some of the same beats there, but we don't get Surfer Dude Aquaman, which is what we got in the Justice League.
Yeah.
He's more serious here. He's more serious, but he also is a bit irreverent. His scenes with Flash humanize both of them because he has these side conversations with Flash that that are cut out again for some reason because it makes both of them better. It makes you like them more. I don't know why they cut. I don't know why they cut those out because they were both fools in the other movie. So I don't know why they cut them out.
So he has he's the only one with mommy issues, whereas the other characters all have daddy issues, right? So
pretty much.
Yeah. Although, like Colin said, I think he has some daddy issues in this as well. I think they cut that out of the movie. Correct. He has because at the end he's like, I need to go see my dad because apparently he hasn't been seeing his dad. So yeah.
Correct. So what they also fleshed out in this, and they gave us a lot more of, which was also criticism I had of the first movie, because you could tell they cut it out. It's like, they only got 2 guards guarding the mother box there, and then we see in this movie clearly there's a lot more to it, right? That they got through and infiltrated. So there were some key differences in the way that played out. Plus, the battle was much more brutal, especially with Steppenwolf coming in and just hacking him in half.
Yeah, that was an awesome battle, but it also touches a little bit on the movie, right? It says the Amazons failed, but they are well led. The Atlanteans failed because they are poorly led. Because Orn wouldn't send more people to protect them. So protect the box.
And there's also clearly planting seeds there where Aquaman and Wonder Woman not helping at all with digging up the grave of Clark Kent, right? They're just sitting there in the back of the van, just chatting away, and they briefly touched upon the history between the Atlanteans and the Amazons, right?
Right.
Clearly planting seeds for Flashpoint, it looks like.
All right. Speaking of the Amazonians, the next person on my list here is Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman, and again, there are issues. I'll get into why I'm upset they cut out, but what do you guys got?
Okay. Again, I think Zack Snyder also had a different version or different vision of Wonder Woman in mind for this. I love the fact that she was this warrior in his version. Better fight scenes, very brutal. And part of it also, I think, it made me think back to Wonder Woman 84, why I kind of soured on it. And every time I think about it, I sour on it more and more. And especially when comparing with better fight scenes and better scenes that in general that Wonder Woman has here, she's fighting with her sword and shield. She's brutal. She's a warrior. Amazons were warrior, and he displayed her as such. Now, I know that he had some plans to be even more brutal, add more to a brutal backstory compared to what Patty Jenkins had in mind. But regardless, I like the version that we got in this. I thought she was a little flat when she was doing that narration during the whole Age of Heroes. I I was like, that sounded like a rough draft. They needed a second or third take on that one. The way she was just kind of reading off on that, but that was my only criticism of her character. And then, of course, we got a lot more of the Amazon backstory and fight scenes. If you guys recall from our previous videos when we're talking about Wonder Woman, I always said I want more Themyscira, and sure enough, we got it. And I loved everything about it. The highlights of the different warriors.
They're going to do a TV show with the Amazons.
Oh, I hope so. That would be great. That would be. I would watch it if it's especially in the similar quality, similar actors and actresses, right? That we have for that. But yeah, that's it. And not to mention that whole, what was it? Was it in London where she's trying? We got the same scene from Whedon's movie, but in this one, I thought was badass, right? It's just awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know people are complaining. I've seen where they say, oh, Zack Snyder's using too much slow-mo. But in this scene, he didn't slow it down for some of it, and I loved it. I loved that everything was like, I guess, normal speed or fast speed in the way she was protecting everybody and just kicking their butts.
Oh, yeah. I think that probably is the scene that even after a couple of days watching it, that scene just stood out. I mean, she was just so amazing in that. And I think that it kind of reminded me of when she first appeared as Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman when she saved Batman. So it's like I think that, gosh, I want more of that from Wonder Woman. It's just this type of very tough warrior mentality of empowerment. And of course, at the end, she kind of reassured that little girl, like everything's going to be all right. So it's like, there is that kind of soft tone that, again, Patty Jenkins tried to do in her movies, but definitely, Zack Snyder kind of saw it in a different vision where Wonder Woman is kind of like, I would say 85% kind of like that, this kind of tough Amazonian, like going after it, almost also murderous in some ways.
She's a soldier.
But she's a soldier. But there's also a softer, kind of more sensitive moment. I also want to allude back to the part where, she was doing the sculpting, and then she said, her coworker was saying, oh, you do this weekend, very boring and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like, I think that Zack Snyder, I like the more kind of the soldier type, warrior type, a take on Wonder Woman rather than the more kind of soft, sensitive. Not to say that isn't good. Not to say that is definitely very necessary. I think it's part of her character, but I think that this tone is so much more, again, aligned with what we envisioned her to be in Batman v Superman.
Yeah, for me, I have some issues with what he did with her a little bit, but I have to say that I enjoyed her here better than I did in Wonder Woman 84. And I think that the first movie strikes the right balance between like murderous warrior and person of heart. But I think that this is still better than what we got in the original Justice League movie, because I don't understand why the bank scene was cut down. Again, if you're trying to connect with these characters, and there are like 7 of them or 6 of them, if you don't count John Jones, there's 6 of them, and if you're trying to connect with them, why cut down that bank scene? Because you understand that she's a warrior in that scene, and you understand that she has a heart. The only time I cried during this movie was at the end of that scene when that girl was on her knees and she said, and she was like, "Are you okay, princess?" And she said, "Can I be like you when I grow up?"
Yes.
So, sorry.
I had a different reaction.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that scene, I said, but you're not Amazonian, so you can't do that.
so I don't understand why you cut that out of the movie. It doesn't make sense to me to cut that out. Now, her going through tombs and jumping 30 feet and then landing in heels is a ridiculous thing to put in the movie.
Heels broken.
Yeah, exactly. And he does have some criticism the way that he dresses the Amazons. He has a very traditional woman, what women should wear aesthetic, and her running around in heels everywhere doesn't make any sense. So that was my issue with him. But on balance, he did a better job with Wonder Woman. Just in the bank scene.
Yeah. And I also want to say one thing is that I think that, this is where DC has potential and Warner Brothers has potential.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I think that, the Wonder Woman scene in Batman v Superman and, the bank scene with Wonder Woman is much better than anything that Marvel does with their female characters. They have. Definitely. I mean, it's just so much better. And then I'm like, wow, this is really empowering, and also it shows a lot of different nuances of a character. And Marvel has not done that yet. They have not done that with their female characters, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the deepest that's been, Captain Marvel, not even close to that. Gamora, maybe with some of the stuff that she has with Thanos in Infinity War, but seriously, Wonder Woman, I think that those two scenes are still sticks out for me. Definitely.
Yeah, I think I've said before also, I have a lot of movies, whether they're action movies or superhero movies or sci-fi movies. I like to revisit a lot of scenes, rewatch a lot of scenes, and that's how I kind of judge a lot of movies based on their rewatchability. Just the other day, I was watching Mad Max: Fury Road. So many great scenes to just rewatch in that, right? And then I go back to even Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Edition. There's the whole warehouse scene. I think, guys, we talked about this behind the scenes as well. That whole scene is just badass. It's awesome to rewatch. We never got that with Wonder Woman 84. I'll be honest, there's not a single scene I can go back to rewatch and go, yeah, that was cool. I don't have it. This one's full of it, and we're just talking about this one character right now, and she already has several scenes in this movie I want to go back to rewatch. And we didn't talk about this part, but yes, she was very brutal, especially what she did to Steppenwolf. Final
not just Steppenwolf,
send-off.
Not just Steppenwolf, but the guys in the bank. She killed a bunch of those guys.
Straight up murder too.
And they're gone, right? Yeah. And Zach, I recall he did get some criticism as to how he did his vision of the Amazons and the way they're dressed versus the way they're portrayed in Wonder Woman. I do have to point out that while he does that, to me it highlights the strength and power. Yeah, I mean, that they embody, you can go. Right? I mean, their muscles are like this, and I love seeing that. And I was just like, yeah, they got to show that more. Why do they have to always portray women to, with the sexy look? There's no muscles sometimes or anything like that. But hey, women can be powerful and very muscular too. And that's what we saw a lot of some of these. To
Zach's credit, I think that he does have he does have an issue. I think with portraying women in what is classically what's supposed to be like classically beautiful things, but. To his credit, I don't think he was as exploitative in his shots and the things that he decided to highlight with the Amazons. He was basically highlighting that they're warriors. Now, they were warriors with very little clothes, but they weren't like gratuitous shots like Flash flying into Wonder Woman's boobs or stuff like that. So he was respectful of the fact that they are warriors, and what you're going to highlight is their work as warriors, or their prowess, their strength. That's what I got on the screen. Even though they had probably less clothes than they would need after they were warriors. So,
yeah.
I think he was going for the 300 aesthetic.
Yeah,
you're right. Because we saw as they're using those hammers against those pillars, you saw the abs just flexing. And I have to admit that had the effect on me, going like, "Wow, look at those abs!" I want those. I mean,
their abs, their biceps as they're holding up the rock. Yeah, you definitely saw them as very strong, very fierce women. So yeah,
definitely.
All right, so moving on, Ezra Miller as Flash. What did you guys think of him? The additions in this movie.
Flash came off, I thought, less goofy, but also more confident compared to what we saw in Whedon's version, Whedon's version, I thought he just came off like ridiculously overly awkward and goofy, and definitely not confident. You couldn't even use that word with his portrayal or what we got. This one, I did see the confidence. I did see that, and I did see the confidence come from within, and none of that stupid, goofy Russian family. Hey, you go do this little crappy job on the side in the final battle. We actually got to see him in a very fantastic sequence. I mean, we saw Ray Fisher's Cyborg get to display why and how he's so powerful, that he's very formidable as a Justice League member. I think we got to see that here with the Flash. That I thought that was awesome, right? And also a precursor of hopefully what's to come, a preview of what's to come in his movie that's supposed to be coming out. So he is getting that movie, and it sounds like they're going to head towards doing some sort of Flashpoint type movie. And we got to see how powerful. I mean, think about how powerful this guy really is, right? To be able to do what he did in two different situations. One, he kind of turned back a little bit to get to that mother box inside the Kryptonian ship. And then the other was clearly he got his timing got messed up when he got shot doing that the final charge up. Oh my gosh, he's that's just awesome. And then we also got to see scenes with him and more parent issue type stuff with Billy Crudup, and Crudup. They also cut his scenes out tremendously as well. We got a lot more Crudup, and we got to see that dynamic between him and his father a little bit more. And I thought that was really nice, sweet scene as well. And of course, they also cut out his future wife to be in Iris West.
They did.
Right?
They did.
Yeah, they cut out. That's another fantastic scene as well. It clearly establishes. Yeah, he's a little goofy, but at the same time, his recovery right after everything was all said and done, and when he was talking to that potential employer. Oh yeah, so I'll be here on Monday if you want me to start me on Monday.
Yeah.
I love that part because it to me it established. Yeah, he's goofy, but you know what? He knows what he's doing. He's got it. So I loved what they did with it, and I was really sad to see they cut out so much in the first version.
Yeah, I think that even in the first version, Flash was a character that I really liked, even with the goofy and awkwardness. Definitely, they toned it down in this movie, and I think that it definitely serves him much better instead of being somewhat of a caricature of himself in the 2017 version. I think that he definitely. The scene with his father was pretty much very interesting because it kind of called back to because Billy Crudup played Dr. Manhattan, and he was kind of being very Dr. Manhattan there, like, oh, you don't need me anymore. You think about your future. You shouldn't love me anymore and all that stuff. So kind of reminded me of that. And I just think that, yeah, you're right, John, is that you definitely see a lot of his powers being pushed to the limit. And you didn't see that, you just know that he was fast and that was it. And that he was kind of his abilities were never pushed in the 2017 version. And now you definitely see why he's so vital to the team is not only that he's being pushed to do things that he shouldn't be doing, but also I think that he has this somewhat innocence to him because he's kind of the young guy. He's kind of the more impressionable guy, and you saw that when he was interacting with Bruce Wayne, you saw a lot of that. So I think that it's almost as though we are all like Flash in some ways. We are all like Barry Allen in, being a part of this amazing team. Did they do it as better? Did they do it better than Spider-Man did? And when Spider-Man was introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? No, I don't think that they did, but you can still see that they were at least tried it. I think it still was pretty effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hated Josh's Flash. I watched the CW show. I don't watch it as religiously as I did before, and I didn't know why they cast this guy. They had a perfectly good Flash on the CW. They could have used him in the movie.
Ezra Miller.
I hated him. I hated what they did with him in that movie. And I hated him because they cut out a bunch of his stuff, right? They cut out a bunch of his stuff that would make me like him. And the stuff that they shot, the new stuff that they shot, made me hate him more. he's a creep. Josh Whedon's Flash is a creep. The things that he does.
You're talking about.
Yeah. So he's like a horn dog creep that is immature and you don't like. In this, he's just inexperienced. He's young, right? But he has so much potential. He showed that he's smart, and but he's just inexperienced. But he knows his power. You get a sense that he spent a lot of time and a lot of effort thinking through his power, putting limits on it, figuring out where the limits were. Right? He's competent. He's just young in this movie, and you're interested in seeing this Flash as portrayed by Ezra Miller again after seeing this movie. I didn't really care about the Flash movie coming out, seriously, based upon what I saw in the whatchamacallit. If the director of the next movie watched this cut and is making some decisions about what to do with him based upon this cut, not based upon Joss Whedon's cut, then sure, I would be like to see that movie, because he keeps saying that it's not a Flashpoint movie, and he wants to make sure people don't expect Flashpoint, but he's going to do some time travel stuff. So yeah,
I'm sure.
They made inexplicable decisions to cut things. They shouldn't have. He had great scenes with Aquaman, which we mentioned before, which humanized both of them, that they cut out.
Yep.
They showed that he's the junior member of the team, even probably more junior than Cyborg, just because Cyborg has this world weary thing just because of the trauma that he went through, even though Cyborg is technically younger than him.
Yep.
But he's smart. And he went when they used him when they went into battle the first time. They were a little disorganized, and they showed the progression of them getting better and better at working with each other. When they went to save Cyborg's father, they were a little disorganized. They went in with a plan, and he was the one who pointed out. He was like, "We're not working with like a team here, guys," because they weren't. They were all over the place, and that would have been a more successful outing if they had been working together. So, when he got all the people out, they had to show the scene where he saved everyone that they cut out. Again,
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't just push him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Again, and
like that stupid thing that they added in the first movie.
That's the other thing that they added that made him look like an idiot, just like a creep. So he had to have this pep talk by Batman saying, "Oh, just save one person." It's like I just push things and move. It's like he was an incompetent fool and a creep in the Joss. And I had no interest in seeing him in a full length movie. And because they cut him down and shot extra things to make him seem like an idiot. I don't understand.
Well, I mean, Joss Whedon did Ultron before, and they had another similar character, Quicksilver, and basically in one of the pivotal scenes in Age of Ultron, he was pushing people aside. So it's like, oh, the Flash, is he going to push people aside? I mean, maybe he was being lazy there and just thought the same way, but I mean, I just can't, dismiss that parallel, a little bit.
I can't forgive him for that. Even from seeing that in the first movie, I was like, why did they make him say that? He just comes off so stupid, right? And but here another great scene, another daddy issue moment, right? Well, not necessarily daddy issue, but a daddy moment where, just like Ray had that quick scene where the Unity was trying to use his parents. Here in that Speed Force scene, he's like talking to his dad, right? He's remembering his dad as he's pushing himself further and further. I was like, man, that's another great scene we didn't get in the first movie, where he's real, one of his last possible moments where he knows that he might not make it. And, the first thing he thinks of is his dad, and he's talking to his dad through it.
Yeah,
I thought it was very emotional, powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
there as well.
One thing is like, and we could talk about this when we talk about different scenes. I didn't necessarily like the Iris West thing. I mean, I feel like they could have done it. They could have written a different scene to introduce her. It seemed a little weird, the slow mo in that thing, because I mean, I have issues with slow mo throughout the movie, but even if you left that in and we got all the other scenes with him, I would take that in all the other scenes, even though I didn't like that set up that well that well, because like you said, we got more scenes with Billy Crudup as his father. You understand his motivations. You understand he's not a goofball. You understand that where he's coming from. That was such a well acted scene between those two actors, and I can understand why Billy Crudup is not coming back for the next movie, because they cut out all his scenes and they're paying him more on the morning show. So why would he come back to this franchise that did him so wrong? And they're obviously not going to use him, right? So yeah,
correct.
So yeah, they
also, I don't think they. I think in the first movie, he got his crime lab job because of Batman, right? That's what I recall.
Except for his,
and in this one, they don't make that reference at all. He got it on his own.
No one. I don't understand the choice there. I mean, is the only competent person have to be Batman? The only person who has intelligence is Batman? Flash is one of the smartest people, one of the smarter people in the DC universe. Why not play that up? Why not?
Yeah. And I think I think when they're trying to make a movie of the Flash outside of the TV show, I think they're sometimes at odds with trying to marry the two personalities of Barry Allen and Wally West, right? The cartoon series was enormously popular, and that version of the Flash was not Barry Allen; it was Wally West, played by Michael Rosenbaum, by the way, and he was hilarious on that show because he's a different personality. He's more of a jokester, jokey, has a lot of funny lines, punchlines, and it sounds like to marry that, and at the same time, what gets lost then is who really is Barry Allen of the comics versus the Wally West, the little pieces of Wally West being thrown in there. And that's the way I was seeing it. It's like, they really like Wally West. Well, if you like Wally West, go with Wally West. Shoot.
Yeah, make him Wally West. No, don't make him Barry Allen, because Barry Allen isn't an idiot. And Wally West isn't an idiot either. I mean, so like, yeah. I mean, yeah. So moving on, because we've already been talking for an hour and 3 minutes. Ben Affleck, Batman. What do you think of Ben Affleck in this movie?
They got rid of his stupid jokes. He still had the "I'm rich" joke in there, but that one was delivered more of the Batman style of deadpan.
But you also
delivery,
got to see how
fun.
rich he was, because they showed you all the things that he has. You saw him on the jet. Yes. You saw him on the thing. So that was his superpower. It made more sense within the context of this movie. So.
Yeah, so that's what I enjoyed about it. I was like, look, in everything, including the very successful animated movies for all the DC universe, Batman, his funny lines are when he delivers them in a deadpan delivery, right? When he says things like, because he's always a straight man. Everyone makes fun of him because of how serious he is. And I think we got that in this movie, right? We got that for the most part, and that's what I like better. He didn't get that stupid line of, oh, something's definitely bleeding, and that, which is completely uncharacteristic of Batman, right? What I liked about it is it definitely ties back to his ridiculously over the top approach that he had in Batman versus Superman, Batman v Superman, where he was just going all out against Superman. Just a one-track mind, a killing machine is what he turned out to be there. And then here it was, to me, I saw another redemption story. He's trying to make amends for his approach. He even says it a couple times. I made a mistake. I've been spending all this time trying to divide us. Now I'm trying to bring us together. And I really love that, what they were trying to do with Batman there. So he was definitely much more like Batman in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that was that type of creative choice was actually very important for Batman, because I think that we see him as the loner, the isolator, antisocial type of thing, but because of the choice that he made in Batman v Superman that led to the death of Superman, and he was very cynical. Let's just put it mildly. He was very cynical about the world, having been in Gotham, and then just being so jaded with all of his rogues gallery, Robin being murdered by the Joker, in this version, and just worn out by the world. And then there's this guy that's like all powerful, much more powerful than him, and he sees kind of like the ills, kind of like the pessimistic, cynical attitude of how he approaches Superman. And so for him, it's, again, like you said, John, is more of a redemption arc where he's like, I was wrong. I should have seen him as a symbol of hope and a symbol of positivity in the world. So I think that to make amends, just like what we talked about yesterday with Winter Soldier, is that for him to make amends was for him to create the League and to really be proactive out there. And we know that, from the comics, it was Superman who was doing this. But this time it's Batman, because of the fact that, he sees that this is part of his legacy, that he should not, he should take a more kind of optimistic outlook on a very cynical world. And so I think that that's a very important lesson that not just him, but also all of us should have, because we do get worn down by the world, and we do get, jaded and cynical in many aspects of what we do. But at the same time, there's always going to be some type of optimism, some type of hope as well in the future. So hopefully that kind of really resonates with people these days.
Yeah. I don't think Batman was robbed as much as other characters in the original cut, but he was still robbed of a little bit of his humanity and a little bit of actually being able to connect with him. I think, of course, Ray Fisher was robbed the most, but the way that they robbed Batman of his humanity and his in understanding him better is by cutting out Jeremy Irons scenes. They cut out all this stuff with Alfred and his interaction with Alfred.
Alfred is
and
awesome.
All this interaction with Alfred.
Yeah, he's a very good Alfred.
And all this interaction with Alfred that both of them are playing off of each other so well, and they cut that stuff out, and it makes no sense to me why they cut those out. That out. Because you like this Batman better. You understand that, as you said, Colin, he's guilty, right? He's spending all this money to try to right his wrong, right? He's flying all around the world to find these heroes, find these metahumans, as he found out in the BVS thing from Lex Luthor's files. Find these people because he feels that something is coming, because he's had this premonition, basically this vision that in the previous movie. So he thinks something is coming. He wants to try to right the wrong of him being so cynical. And at the end, and like he said, he's at the end he says, I'm just going on faith. I'm not. I have to believe that this is going to work out. I'm going on faith. And his sacrifice, he seemed like he sacrificed in the other movie, and it just seemed cheap, or like, okay, they're just trying to highlight. Yeah, it was unearned. It's unearned. Highlight, Batman. This is what he would do. But it made more sense. He knew that he was the only person there without like superpowers or whatever. But he came with his entire arsenal, right, to throw out this problem. He in a lot of scenes, I think he knew that maybe he wouldn't survive, but that's fine. He wants to try to get them just a couple more inches down the yard, the field, right, to where they need to go, so they can accomplish what they need to accomplish, because he's not going to fix this problem. Cyborg's going to fix the problem when they get there, but he need to get Cyborg there, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's that he wasn't robbed as much, and we can talk about some of the Superman, the sleep sequence when we talk about Superman in a little bit. He wasn't robbed as much as everyone else, but he was still robbed because they cut out Jeremy Irons scenes. Like I said, Jeremy Irons. Now that we're talking about Ben Affleck, we can talk about the fact that, like you said, he was good in every scene, even when he wasn't with Bruce. That scene when he was making the tea, and he was so attentive to, like, the right way to make tea. Diana was basically just was kind of bemused and just tolerating him. That was again, it was a great scene between the two of them.
She was sweet. She was sweet about it too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I enjoyed about this too, is you didn't get that in-your-face stupid humor like the rooftop scene in the first movie, in the 2017 version, where that I like that actor who played that thief, but that whole sequence was stupid. I mean, it just came off so juvenile, like some cheap show, and then that's how that's how we're introduced to this version of this. It was kind of weird, and they completely took that out because clearly that Joss Whedon scene, right? And but I did just overall as a whole, I did appreciate the subtle humor in this movie. There were none of that were in your face, over the top, cracking one-liners left and right. It wasn't like that. And because of that, I felt that the humor was a little bit more organic, right? It came off a little more organic. Yes, they were still funny. I chuckled. It wasn't super laugh out loud or anything like that, but it was just enough to where, hey, you certainly can't accuse it of this movie had no humor. You cannot say that. You can definitely point to some of the subtle humor that you give a nod to and say, yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and it mostly came from Jeremy Irons. A lot of them came from Jeremy Irons. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I just think that overall, you're right. The scenes with Alfred, it kind of reminded me. I think that we talked a little bit about Atlas Shrugged with in our conversation. So it's like, I think there's like this Jeremy Irons just like reading off Atlas Shrugged or something like that. I think it's on the internet. So it's just very interesting to kind of like just the brilliance of the acting that's involved between Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons, the playing off of it. I think that's definitely one of the strong suits from Batman v Superman. Just like kind of seeing Bruce's humanity in those scenes between Alfred and Bruce. So I think that they need that much because it was kind of established in the previous movie. But yeah, definitely it would have been great if you had a couple more Alfred scenes here and there to kind of show Bruce's humanity.
Yeah, Alfred is just.
Yeah, that line when Bruce came back to the Batcave and he says, "I work from him." that was another one.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I like really these little moments like that.
Yeah. So Henry Cavill as Superman or Clark Kent. What do you got? What do you guys think?
Thank goodness, no mustache CGI.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh! Right. So none of the scary-looking fake Clark face. None of that. Although it was a sweet little scene, they took out that beginning scene where Clark is Superman's being interviewed by those children to start off the first version of Justice League. They took that out completely. And then obviously the nasty CGI mess that we got in the first movie, I think it was a rush job. So it looked like, well, from what I'm gathering, they filmed everything or did everything in the black suit, and then they try to paint over it with Photoshop or whatever it is in the first version of it.
The other way around. They shot it in the color suit, and then they color corrected it for this thing. They color corrected it black and silver.
Okay, well then there's no excuse. Then why did it look so bad in the first movie? It looked really bad. It looked like a rush job on everything. So there's that one scene, I don't know if you just compare it side by side, where Superman, when he first shows up to fight Steppenwolf, he flies up and then he gives him a nice punch from the side view angle because he's up on the one corner. Both scenes are exactly the same, except the first one he's wearing his blue and red suit, and then the second one he's wearing the black and silver or the black and white. It's completely different in the quality, vastly different, because it looked like so fake, terrible CGI job in the first one. Like
this is the one part where desaturating the colors probably helped that scene, because with all the colors on, it's probably why it looks so bad.
Yeah,
and then because he desaturates everything.
More.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, maybe that's what happened. It just looks so jarringly bad that I know that's probably one of the scenes that prompted many viewers to go, "Oh man, it's terrible special effects and visual effects in this one." But his scenes I thought were great, and again, more backstory, a little touching more on. There's definitely more Lois that was definitely cut out of Justice League, and those moments made Superman not only as part of the story and plot to bring him back. not so quickly like they did in the first movie. But there's a lot more weight to it, right? There's a lot more weight to it. We also got to see some of the scenes they cut out that we saw in the trailers at Comic-Con before Joss really took over. So some of those scenes we finally got to see, right? And also we got Mark McClure, the first Jimmy Olsen who played that actor played in the Superman 1970s movies. That this time around he's a cop. Right, and there's some sweet moments that he has with Lois Lane this time, whereas in the first movie he was in to the prison, the visitor logs, right, and that type of stuff. But so we got a lot of moments here, and again, more this time dad moments. As soon as he comes back, the first two people he thinks of, and he's walking down the hallway to get ready to put on his suit. When he dons a suit, he's thinking of Jonathan, his dad, and he's also thinking of Jor-El, his dad, the stuff that he said to them. So again, very nice moments like that.
Yeah, and I think that definitely, he wasn't as memorable in Batman v Superman. Just in all the scenes that he was in, not very memorable. Just probably the one scene that maybe would stick out is just like trying to speak sense to Batman, please implore, we have to work together, we have a common enemy, that type of thing. But again, Alfred did a better job of explaining, Superman than Superman explaining to Batman. So I think that scene that he had with Alfred was pretty good, because I think it kind of called back to, Alfred's reaffirmation that we have hope. This guy is not the enemy. Just like what he said. He is not our enemy. So he knew kind of like the core values of who Superman is. He's trying to do right. He's trying to do good, and it just didn't register with Bruce in Batman v Superman. But now, because of what Alfred said, I think that that scene really kind of helped to solidify that, and also kind of call back to that. And and it's a good payoff. It definitely was a good payoff, and you could definitely see like the beaming of Alfred. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy is going to come in and just like really just unite the Justice League together.
Sorry about that, everyone. I didn't want to continue. Whoever's watching, I'm not sure if anyone is connected right now. I didn't want you to continue watch it with just still images of them. And when we are finished live streaming, I'll just cut that out of the live stream so that people watching it later on.
Yeah. Looks like we're moving again. Okay. Yep.
All right. The last point. What were we talking about? We're talking about Superman. So.
We're talking about Superman. Just about just like the cutting out the whole debate about whether to resurrect Superman was, especially the exchange between Batman and Wonder Woman was cut out of this cut.
Yeah, they definitely did it differently this time, to where it's consensus that they were all thinking the same thing, right? And so I liked how they did it in this one, because it seemed like they were all thinking the same thing, and because of that, it seemed to come more organically.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Go ahead. You about to say something? So, yeah, again, because Superman doesn't show up until like 2 hours into the movie, but he's a looming presence behind everything they're saying.
Absolutely.
Because they cut out Ray Fisher stuff, they make the Superman resurrection make less sense. Because his explanation of how the cubes work, their mother boxes work, explains why they came to that solution, right?
Yep.
And when they cut that out, it doesn't make any sense, because they cut out all the Ray Fisher stuff. The other thing, even though Superman doesn't show up until two and a half or two hours into the movie, even though he doesn't show up until 2 hours in the movie. The other thing that makes him work is the stuff with Lois and the stuff with his mother.
Yes.
And the stuff with his mother that happens earlier in the movie. Now, I think one of the scenes with Lois, I have an issue with the slow motion music videos throughout this movie, because there are a lot of them. But I think some of the stuff with Lois and understanding her motivations and the fact that she came to that site every single day makes more sense for her being there, rather than Batman orchestrating stuff, just like Batman was orchestrating stuff with Batman orchestrated Flash's job. Batman gave Flash confidence to go into battle. He doesn't have to be the smartest person in everything. He doesn't have to be the one who made Lois come to the thing. He just he doesn't have to be the solution to every plot thing. Anyway.
Well, he was the solution to them getting back the house. So that was important. I would argue that was actually.
I think that was penance for what he did.
True.
Sure.
He also otherwise Ray could have done something.
Yeah, Ray could have done it. Ray could have fixed it. Ray could have fixed it too. Honestly, Ray could take away Bruce's powers.
That's right. Wow.
That's a good one.
You're not rich anymore.
I know.
But yeah, the stuff with her and his mother, that scene was better than the scene at the Daily Planet. The fact that she wasn't going back to the Daily Planet was better. The fact that she was depressed was better. I think one of those scenes ran a little bit too long for me. That was the point when I kept falling asleep. But on whole, just like the thing that I didn't like with Flash, if I got that scene that I didn't like, plus all this other stuff that I do like with Lois, I would keep that in, right? They just wrote her better, and you had to not wrote her better. That you got to understand her better and her motivations better. In those scenes before he shows up, and also the scenes when he does show up, right? You also got to see that she had a pregnancy test in the thing in the drawer. And notice that when earlier in the movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when he shows up, I think a lot of his scenes are pretty much the same, except for the way that he fights Steppenwolf. I don't think he freezes this axe in the Joss Whedon.
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah.
No.
Which was another great scene. I thought. I loved that.
It was good. It was very good. And I definitely like the suit choice in this one as well. It definitely made him look more menacing. They didn't say he went up into space with that suit on, right? In this one,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't say, and they probably should have said that the reason that he chose that was because it helped him heal, and it probably was allowing him absorb even more sun. You didn't really, you kind of have to understand from the comics. That's why he had the black and white suit on, but it looks nice. I think his character wasn't as well served because they cut out the women, and again, they're cutting out the people of color and they're cutting out the women out of this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I guess we can talk about. I mean, unless you have other things about Superman.
I was just going to say that they also. I like the way they started this movie, where they really connected it from Batman versus Superman. So they tied it a lot better. Actually, they made a direct connection, right? Mm-hmm. His death and his death scream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What also tied to the mother boxes waking up from their slumber or whatever it was, right? So I really like that as well, and so that really made it look like a direct sequel, right?
That was a little bit of a plot hole for me because they explained that the mother boxes didn't call out because he existed, but the mother boxes have been on the Earth for like 5,000 years. He didn't exist for most of the time that they were on Earth. Why did they call out after he died?
True.
Right? It was a little bit of plot hole. Unless there were some other heroes that just kept dying until he showed up on Earth. There was a little. It didn't make sense. But it was a better way to start the movie than CGI mouth Superman.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so we got through all the heroes, and now we can talk about Steppenwolf. What do you think of the additions or the corrections or the changes to Steppenwolf in this movie?
He looked much better, very cool looking. Still looks very different from comic book Steppenwolf, but he definitely looks. The CGI was a hell of a lot better. It was like so detailed, so many like intricate little things all over him. His armor, his living armor, whatever he has. He definitely had much better motivation and backstory in this as well. He didn't do that Mike Pence mother thing where he's calling out to mother box, right? But instead, there's also a better mythology when he's talking about they're going to form this unity, and his motivation is he needs to get back to his commanding dictator in Darkseid, who I think they finally referenced that he is family, that he betrayed long ago, and he's definitely putty before Darkseid, but he's definitely this ruthless, brutal, super warrior that everyone has a hard time with. So definitely much better. He sounds better too, by the way. Ciarán Hinds also does his voice, but they obviously do something different with his voice to sound a little bit more menacing too.
Yeah, I think that they definitely use him as much more of a threat, whereas in the 2017 version, it was just like, oh, it's just a CGI character. It's not like, what's his motivation of him being a threat? You can definitely much more fleshed out in this movie, where you can definitely feel that, he is a kind of like the Justice League level threat, whereas in the previous movie it's kind of like, he's kind of like a threat, but not. We can just kind of like eliminate him pretty easily. Whereas this one, it's like, he's very menacing. He's killed, Atlanteans, Amazonians, very powerful warriors. He killed them, like just straight up killed them. So there's that, and then also the brutality of it. Like I think in the fight scene with Wonder Woman, I mean, Wonder Woman can't even hold her own against Steppenwolf. So there's a lot of that, and even the parademons look very menacing, very powerful. That they're a handful. So it's like giving them that type of vulnerability is actually very important, and I think that kind of raises the villainy of the character much higher, and then his eventual death is actually much more satisfying because of the fact that he's killed and because of his kind of like more evil intentions, and that he works for his family to Darkseid, who is like the epitome of all evil, and so all of that kind of plays into he deserved to die at the end.
Yeah, this is another. So as I said when we were talking earlier, almost an hour and a half ago when we started, I liked the first movie, or at least I was like meh on it. And one of the reasons I was meh on it was because of this character. He's not a Thanos, right? And he's not any kind of character where you actually understand his motivations or you care about his motivations. But there were other parts of that movie that I liked, so I was like, okay, meh. One of the reasons, as you said, John, the rendering on him made him look like a video game character. And that's not from. I mean, that's not something I originally came up with. Something that many people think. It just looked like it looked like a video game render. It didn't look like a movie render of a character. The work wasn't put in, and I don't know if this is what he originally looked like, and the studio told him to look more human. Told Joss Whedon to make him look more human, or if this is just part of what Zack Snyder has spent $70 million on. But he looks a lot better. That's one thing, and. You understand him more. You understand his motivations. He's still like a murderous person, but like going back to character design, you see like he has seven fingers and things like. Although he looks more alien, you understand his motivations, and he's checking in a lot with DeSaad, which is a weird.
He's phoning home,
which is a weird device, but I understand they kind of put it there for exposition purposes. Kind of, if you don't understand what's happening, you don't understand that him putting in the second mother box created a dome and things like that. That's why he's checking. That's why he's checking in with DeSaad, so that the audience understands what's happening. And now the
He's
fortress
calling
fortress is what you call it. But in one of those scenes with DeSaad, you actually get some of his, not necessarily his humanity, but you understand where he's coming from. He's like he's kind of prostrating himself in front of DeSaad, and definitely when Darkseid shows up, and when DeSaad is like, you have like 50,000 more worlds. You can see his eyes. It's like 50,000 more worlds. I can't come out.
Are you saying you felt for him?
And that they made him look cute, like right here, like I'm serious, like in this area, because his eyes are so big, and he just saw he looked like a wounded puppy in that. He's like,
He did.
Yes, he did.
He just wants to go home.
yeah. So
make a meme out of that, out of it when in our Facebook page, make a meme out of it.
Yeah.
Just like
yeah.
the sad puppy dog eyes of Steppenwolf.
Yeah,
That would be very
so you understand his motivations better. You understand that he's more menacing because they didn't cut out you got to see all the Amazon scenes. You got to see an extended Atlantean scene. You understood that he was a real threat.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
in the previous movie, we were like, why do we need to get Superman and all these other people together to get this guy? I mean, but in this one, you understand. So
Right.
yeah. So definitely them cutting him out was ridiculous. What did you think of Darkseid and the additions of Darkseid? We didn't see him a lot, but
He was. I think the glimpses that we see of him establishes he's definitely a force to be reckoned with, right? We didn't see. He obviously took over the scene where in the original movie, during the Age of Heroes scene, it was Steppenwolf coming to Earth thousands of years ago,
right.
and trying to battle all the heroes. But this time it was the younger Darkseid who came to Earth, and he failed. And failed. Darkseid looked really cool, badass. Looks just like what we see in the comic books. And love the scene where not only is he next to DeSaad, but Granny Goodness as well, and we see the whole background of Apocalypse, the planet where he is. So it's a nice setup. I definitely would love to see a Darkseid movie where they're finally battling him either on Apocalypse or him coming to Earth. But at the same time, one criticism I do have is with that plot hole of, so he comes to Earth during the Age of Heroes, finds the anti-life equation there,
and then
the mother boxes he clearly loses, and then
forgets about
for thousands of years he forgets
Earth.
where the hell it is, where he got his ass kicked.
Yeah,
like
I can't come up with something that would fill that plot hole. Like I can understand maybe. I don't understand how they conquer. The only thing that I can think of is that there's so many Earths or so many planets, right? They're not just they're not just conquering planets in this universe, because they're apparently from another another universe, and the anti-life equation inside of the DCEU is apparently lets him control people throughout the multiverse, not just the universe.
Yep.
So maybe he's from some other universe. So trying to find this particular Earth, and this universe. Seeing as how he was injured, and his entire armada was sent packing. Maybe they didn't pinpoint this particular Earth when they jumped to this Earth. That's the only thing that would make sense. And he was injured, so he was completely incapacitated, nearly near death when they put him in the ship, right?
Right.
So maybe he was unconscious, and they all and whoever his lieutenant is or whatever decided to leave, and that's why they don't know where it is. That's the only thing
they weren't paying attention. Just go.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to save him and stuff like that. So I think, that's probably it, because I think that they did mention multiverse. So I'm guessing that initially I thought maybe temporary amnesia, but I think that you're probably dealing with so many thousands and millions of worlds, and you're specifically looking at this particular Earth to find the anti-life equation. So that's why it's maybe it just kind of slipped his mind, because there's so many worlds that are out there for him to conquer, that type of thing.
Yeah, there's probably millions of just Earths, and then he's not conquering he's not conquering just Earths. He's conquering all the worlds across all the multiverses. So maybe that's why.
So he's Thanos before Thanos, by the way. For those of you watching and listening, he was created first, and
by the same
of course
guy,
in the
right?
movies,
Jack Kirby created
Jack Kirby. That's
Kirby
right.
created
Absolutely
both of them. So
he created.
So you can't really say that either one of them was stolen. He created both of them. So
he created. They copied him now.
Yeah.
But they definitely got his voice right. His voice to me is exactly what I imagined would be for Darkseid, and it matches some of the voice actors that have portrayed or played his voice in all the animated movies as well. So, so definitely it met my expectations. Darkseid did.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we've been talking so I want to talk about the epilogue stuff a little bit because there are a couple characters there, Lex Luthor, Joker, Martian Manhunter, and Deathstroke that we can touch on before we close out. But before we close out, I wanted to talk about the characters of color that were cut out. We talked about this a lot before, but Iris Ress was cut out. Ryan Choi was cut out, and Philippus, one of the key Amazons in the comics, a black woman, was also cut out. The decision, the willful decision to like cut out all the people of color, cut down all the women's scenes.
Yeah,
it had. I mean, even if people were doing it unintentionally, I think that they need to go back and understand why they were doing it unintentionally. Why do they think that those were the things that needed to be cut out? Why do they think those are the things that were least deserving of that story being told? Because there's definitely a pattern that you can see there, right?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that by the time Joss Whedon took over and they were already reeling from the box office returns that did not meet their expectations, the studio heads all decided, you know what, we're going to cut our losses. We're done. There's not going to be any further universe crap after this. Cut out everything that you don't need to plant seeds for something else. Like, for example, Ryan Choi. You got rid of him, the hottest thing on earth, right? why would you?
The hottest
why
thing.
would you get?
Is he a sex symbol in China?
No. He makes that reference.
No, he made that quote and he made that reference in the movie.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because they were talking about the mother box and said this thing is the hottest thing on earth. He said, "I once told that to my prom date."
No.
So and it looked like Zack Snyder was planting seeds for him as well. I don't know where we would have seen him, but it would have been nice to see one of the first Asian superheroes, right? He becomes the Atom.
In DC.
And he's actually the fourth Atom. Yeah. He's actually the fourth Atom. And side note here, Ryan Choi, very Korean name.
That's a Korean name. And that's what I thought so. And he's Chinese.
So weird.
Yeah. And he has a very distinct Chinese accent, right?
Yeah, well, the character himself is supposed to be from Hong Kong, but I never knew. I think maybe the white people that wrote him.
Oh, the character
just mixed.
So the character is Hongkonese.
Is actually Hong Kong.
I didn't know that. I just saw the last name and I always assumed that he was Korean because I mean that's a Korean last name.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a Korean last name.
From Hong Kong, yeah. I had to look it up and go, wait a minute, because I went to first when we were going to discuss him. I was going to bring up, here we have another guy who's not Korean playing a Korean character, right? But when I looked it up, nope, sure enough, he's from Hong Kong, the actual comic book character.
Interesting.
But yeah, you're right. They got sidelined, right? So to me, I was geeking out saying, oh, they're doing more with Ryan Choi. That's pretty cool. I thought he was going to have just that one scene with Joe Morton, Silas Stone, but we definitely got more. Iris West. Didn't even see her at all in the first version of Justice League at all whatsoever. She was completely cut out. And Philippus, I think we got a 2-second shot of her in the first movie, and here we got several scenes with her. Right. So yeah, I agree.
All right.
I just think maybe because they did it out of time, that because of the runtime. But even that is kind of like a very lean excuse. I just think that it wouldn't have. If they put it in the original version, it wouldn't have been detrimental at all. It's not like it's anything that I think it would be much more of a win for them. But I just think that it's just that kind of like old school mentality that people have. It's like, oh yeah, just cut that out because it doesn't serve the plot, but it's like, well, but that's
Well,
but it may also.
I mean, I can see
don't know.
cutting some of Ryan Choi's stuff, but some of Ryan Choi's stuff was with Joe Morton, and which made Joe Morton better and made it so they cut the scenes where two people of color are talking to each other. I don't know. They need a white person in the frame. Yeah. I don't know.
To save the scene,
yeah.
sure.
I don't know. So the end of this movie, there's a bunch of things tacked onto this epilogue. This epilogue could have been cut down down, but we get a bunch of things that we can talk about. We get Lex Luthor, we get the Joker, we get Martian Manhunter, and we get Deathstroke. I think not in that order. Well, actually, you know what? We get Deathstroke twice. So what do you guys want to talk about there?
Yeah. We can talk about by the way, all three scenes. I imagine if Justice League was originally still Zack Snyder's version in 2017, and he was allowed to proceed with this, I think they all would have worked nicely as mid-credits or stingers.
Right,
or
and I think they should just
scenes, right?
I feel like they want to be so much different than Marvel. I think they should just do that. That shouldn't have been the end of the movie. That should just be mid-credit scenes or things like
Correct.
that. They should do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it like that. And so what changed in this one with the Lex Luthor being out of jail or escaping from jail and meeting up with Deathstroke, the difference here was in the first one he was alluding to Legion of Doom, bringing together the Legion of Doom.
I thought it was
This time,
Injustice League. I think it was even weird. I thought it was the Injustice League.
So Injustice or Legion of Doom or whatever it was, he wanted to put together his own team, right, to combat the Justice League. This time around, it was a little different. In what they changed was Jesse Eisenberg gave some very
it was basically a Far From Home ending, right? It's like we know,
right,
he's Bruce Wayne, and so that it sounds like that would have been a nice setup to Affleck
was going to do with
Deathstroke with Joe Manganiello's character, and then you got the nightmare scene where that's the alternate timeline / future universe that Batman's been having nightmares about, and also Cyborg saw a brief flash
the ship showed him a premonition of what would happen if he went forward, and he said no, and the Flash heard go.
Correct. And so that's a very possible future that could happen, and we saw I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it to me it was very reminiscent of Injustice, a time story mixed with a lot of what we see in certain comics of alternate future universes, and bringing together the bad guys and good guys to fight for a common cause, because Earth is practically run and taken over by the bad Superman, right? Who's fallen under the anti-life equation.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it. I just think that it should have been a mid-credit scene because it kind of messes up the epilogue. The epilogue should have been about Cyborg, because the whole movie was sort of about Cyborg, and it's called, the epilogue is called Your Father Twice Over, right? And it would have had more impact if the movie ended there, and then they had these as stingers.
Agreed.
The dream sequence is a stinger at the end.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's definitely it's kind of like a bunch of like post-credit scenes. Basically, the epilogue was like one after the other after the other. I think that I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to be different from Marvel. Like you don't want to do the post-credit scenes like how Marvel did it, and they just kind of like said, okay, why don't you just put these scenes as epilogue for all the different kind of, but if it does take you a little bit away from the actual movie, and you're right, Nathan, is that it should be kind of like finish it with Cyborg, then just do some post-credit stingers like you said. I think that definitely the interaction that Joker and Batman had in the nightmare scene was very tense. So it's like this very intensive kind of stare down, like I'm going to like just about to kill you if you don't fall in line. So I think that was brilliantly acted by Ben Affleck and also Jared Leto in that way. And I know that a lot of controversy about Jared Leto, being not a very good Joker, but in that sense, you can definitely see the menace and then the tension between the two. And it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of the Arkham Asylum game. where he comes back. He comes back as like a voice in his head, in Batman's head, and then the scene in Dark Knight Returns where he's like, "Stop laughing." It's like that menace that he's always going to be a part of each other, and it was all played off because Mera. Okay, because Aquaman died, and so it was all played off from that, and then he's saying like, you almost to the point of, you never love a person like I have that you have with me. So it's like that kind of like love relationship between those two, and I think that was very well done in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the scenes. Like I said, I think the Lex Deathstroke scene should have been the mid-credit scene, and then Bruce's dream should have been the end credit scene, and then after he wakes up, he meets Martian Manhunter. If I were to reshuffle things, that's what they should have done, and you could have had the exact same movie, having it end with the father stuff with Cyborg and some of the voiceover. Yeah, the interaction between him and Batman in the dream sequence was really good. It was a really good setup for more Batman. Also, it was the Lex Luthor scene was a good setup for the next Batman movie, and then the dream sequence was a good setup for the movie that would probably come after that, which would probably be Doomsday coming to Earth. So that was a good setup for I guess 2 or 3 movies after that.
Darkseid.
Sorry, what did I say? Doomsday. Sorry.
Doomsday's already dead.
They wasted Doomsday, but so Darkseid, Darkseid coming to Earth later on. So yeah, I think there were good scenes, just poorly placed. And the scene on the boat was better in this than the I think the Injustice League line was stupid. It was stupid. I understand that's what it's named in the comics, but with the tone of that he's trying to do with this movie, this more realistic, grittier tone, I don't think that they call whatever group they have the Injustice League. It was goofy. The Martian Manhunter thing was, I mean, it's fine here or there. I mean, I feel like they shouldn't have made him show up earlier in the movie. It would have been better if he showed.
That took away from that scene.
Because it would have been better if it was Martha. And if he showed up here, that would have been cool. I mean, cool. If that's the last thing you saw, that would have been Martian Manhunter showed up. I think that would have been cooler. Although you don't get the reveal if he shows up. If he shows up like that, as he is, you don't get the reveal that the general was always Martian Manhunter. So maybe that's why they put it in there.
True, but I think they could have still done that another way. I get that they filmed that probably later, because from what Zack Snyder was saying in interviews, they clearly had somebody else in mind for that scene with Bruce. It sounds like to me they wanted John Stewart in there. Green Lantern, and then they were told no because they have other plans for John Stewart, and so he shoehorned in Martian Manhunter into that scene, and then decided to set him up a little bit differently, but found that other opportunity for Martha to be
Martian Manhunter,
General Swanwick.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that the other thing that and we talked about this offline, he doesn't seem to like Superman at all. Zack Snyder. The way that he writes him as if he's on the edge of being a savior and also Homelander from the boys. Like he could turn like that. So even though a good part of the second half of this movie was, we got to get Superman back. Even as they were bringing him back, people were getting visions of, bring him back, sure, but this is what's going to happen. The world's going to get destroyed when you bring him back. So,
yeah, I think we talked a little bit about that, where he clearly thinks that while Superman is super powerful to have on our side, even starting with Man of Steel, he wrote it from the perspective of the fear of such a being that powerful, the potential fear and what can go wrong. And then you see a little bit more of it manifest in Batman versus Superman, especially with maybe Batman was being his mouth on that, well, certainly
Yeah.
Frank Miller's mouth.
I think
when-
Batman and also Lex Luthor. I feel like
And
Zack
Lex
Snyder
Luthor, that's
Zack
right.
Snyder has some Lex Luthor feelings about Superman, about because he has politics that are coming from. We talked about this last night, Ayn Rand and stuff like that, about people working to create working hard to create what they deserve or whatever. So this being that is just born with these gifts.
Yes.
And he's worshipped. I think doesn't sit well with Zack Snyder, and he kind of writes that into some of his stuff.
Yeah, and the reactions to it, right? Especially the way it was portrayed in Batman versus Superman. Oh man, this the paranoia, the crazy reactions, the whole coming before the Senate or congressional hearing, that type of stuff, and the potential danger he is, and of course all that was orchestrated more so with Lex Luthor playing behind the scenes to do a lot of that. But and then here, of course, even more so with Batman and the nightmare scenes, right? Even more so that potentially it could head in that direction because of the anti-life equation. That's the big threat.
Yeah. All right, so we've been talking for almost 2 hours now about this 4-hour movie, but we are interested in hearing what you guys think about the movie. We will probably make more content about this movie because I haven't touched on everything I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure you guys have more to talk about. But this is probably the longest video we've created, and should probably stop here. So we want to hear what you guys think. Comment down below, like and subscribe for more content like this, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.